Sure.
Senator Santorum, appreciate you being here. I, like yourself, I do have a family, and while I'm still young, 35 years old, and have a long time left, I'm not so concerned with the United States that I have to live in, but the one that my son has to live in going forward. Having said that, with the deficit problems that we have for over 14 trillion, when you consider the present value of the future obligations we have to some entitlement programs, it's well over 60 trillion. Having said that, looking at the income statement and the balance sheet of the United States, is it possible to solve those problems with only concentrating on expenditures instead of revenues as well? What is your answer on that?
My feeling is, let's look at the problem, right? And see where the problem is with respect to our deficit and the economic situation we're in. Historically in America, we spend about 18, sometimes as high as 19 on average. I think it's like 18.5% of GDP is spent on government, historically. And that goes back to World War II. It's gradually increased over time, but that's been roughly the level. Almost no matter what we do, we max out in America. We've had 90% tax rates and low as 10 top rates and as low as 28% top rates. But with the exception of the late 90s, when we had these huge capital gains because of the run-up in the stock market, we usually got about 18 to 19% of revenue. Somehow or another, Americans always figured out a way to not have to pay more in taxes. And particularly now, where you have the ability for capital to move out of the country, it's going to be much harder to extract more out of America than that amount of money. So if you look at historically where our revenues have been as a percentage of GDP, then you have to ask the question, well, what's the best, how are we going to best get to these levels? Right now we're spending almost 25% of GDP in spending. So we're about 6 to 7 percentage points above 18 to 25. Our revenues are about 15 or 16. So about 2 to 3% below. Principal reason revenues are low, almost the exclusive reason, is because the economy is suffering. It's not the principal reason, it's part of it, but it's not the principal reason why our revenues are high. Our expenditures are high, not revenues, our expenditures are high. It's part of it. Means tested entitlement programs are up. But we've also had a pretty dramatic expansion of federal spending and entitlement programs. So, where's the problem? Right? The problem is spending. The problem isn't taxes. We can fix taxes by getting the economy growing. We can't fix spending. We can fix some of it, but we can't fix anywhere near all of it by growing the economy. So the answer is we need to grow the economy. Now, how do we do that? Well, part of it is creating a pro-growth tax code. I put together a tax policy which takes the IRS, gets rid of it, if you will, gets rid of the existing code and replaces it with something very simple. 2 tax rates, 10%, which is the bottom rate now, and 28%. Why 28%? It was good enough for Ronald Reagan, it's good enough for me. And Ronald Reagan passed a 28% top rate with a Democratic Congress. So we have a history. I'm trying to I'm trying to find things that can work. You know, you're trying to find something that you can find common ground and get people to say, well, there was consensus on this in the past. Let's see if we can build it again. Get rid of the code and the complexity. Have 5 deductions, if you will. 5 provisions that we deal with that I believe government and the tax code has a role of encouraging. So the old Reagan idea, you want more of something, subsidize it, less of something, tax it. So what do we want to subsidize? Pensions, you'll be happy to hear that. Health care, housing, charities, children. Those 5 things. Those are the 5 things in the tax code that we would have provisions in place that we would make sure that we are encouraging, because we think those are foundational pillars of a good and just economy and society. On the corporate side, we would take the corporate tax, which is 35% now, and cut that corporate tax rate to 17.5%. In half, make it more of a net profits tax, simplify it. Not, same thing, we'd have a few deductions and exclusions. One in particular I talk about is the R&D tax credit, which I think is important in a knowledge-based economy to continue. Make it 20% and permanent. And then that's for all corporations except one sector. And I single out this sector because I think it is essential for a variety of reasons for the future of our economy and for the future of a lot of Americans who have been left behind by this knowledge-based economy. And that is non-college educated blue-collar workers. And that is the manufacturing sector.